Ciao.
This episode of In a Few Minutes is sponsored by BetterHelp, online counseling that's there for you. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health at betterhelp.com/afew.
Here's an educational device. It is in fact a direct reflection of your own imagination, your own intelligence, your own programming skills. And once you're...
One time.
It might be, and that would be okay, because it'll be like, oh, now I know how to not have that be a problem. Adam Christianson is here with us, everybody. We're just, talking about podcast stuff, because we're podcasters. I've got, this one. And Adam has the MacCast. Do you want to tell people? I know people know it, but, it's been a while since you've said. Tell people about the MacCast, where they can find it, all that good stuff.
Sure. It's basically a show about Apple and Macintosh and all things that Apple does. It's very much, and I'm proud of this, a community-driven show. So, it's all about hanging out with other Mac geeks and people in the community. We try to answer questions and help people out. And that's pretty much it. Been doing it for a long time. If you want to check it out, you can find it on your favorite podcast app just by searching for MacCast.
And MacCast.com, I believe. And you can also follow Adam on Twitter. He is MacCast, 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 if you want to follow him on Twitter as well. All right, so since I've talked to you, Apple has introduced a bunch of new stuff. Second part of the show, we're going to talk about the new Macs, what with your being a Maccaster and all. Let's start first with the small things, though. I keep forgetting that they actually did introduce a new iPad, and they introduced an iPad mini as well, because my thought is on the watch and the phone. And that's probably because, weirdly, I think this is the first year ever that I've gotten new two things. Like, I think this is my third Apple Watch. So I don't do anything like every year or every other year. With the phone, I tend to do every other year. Not always, but usually. I'm curious, starting with those small things, do you have either of those as new devices for you?
No, I don't. But I mean, the iPad mini I find very, very exciting. And actually the update to the iPad, the base level iPad, I think is incredible. Like if you're in the market for an iPad, like both of those things are like a huge option. I have a 11-inch iPad Pro, and now I can't even remember what generation it is. I think first generation, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
That's how much I'm staying on top of like iPads and things like that. So no, I love my iPad. It's great. It serves me well. I use it constantly. I actually do most of my show prep on it. Mm-hmm. But it's not slow. It does everything I need it to do. So I'm not really in the market for an iPad. But if I was, like these new ones, I think are incredible. I'm not a big fan of the iPad mini personally, like the form factor, but I know a lot of people who really like that size. I think actually Dave Hamilton is a huge fan of the iPad mini, and I think he got one. And it's an amazing update. Like fans of the iPad mini are stoked on that model, and I can understand why.
I'm curious why. I don't really understand. I'm not a fan of the iPad mini. I mean, I like the fact that it's there, and that's great, but my next computer will be a 16-inch. It's not happening this year. It's probably not happening for like 2 or 3 years, but my next computer will be a bigger screen because I like a bigger screen. I wonder, like, why does Apple keep the iPad mini around, or why does Apple keep holding back the iPad mini updates? Because it's been years until we got this update.
I think the two go hand in hand. I think there is a small devout following of the iPad mini. Like it's definitely a niche market, I think, in terms of like who goes for that form factor for the exact reasons you're talking about. Like I prefer a larger iPad. I tried the 12.9. For me, that was a little bit too big. Mm-hmm. So I went back down to the 11-inch Pro, and I think that's like the perfect form factor for me. Or that, like I said, if I was in the market for a new iPad, I might seriously consider the new 10.2, just the entry-level iPad, which is like an amazing price point.
Yeah.
But I think what a lot of people like about the Mini is, especially if you're like into, I think, books and reading content. And I think it's also kind of a nice form factor for like watching movies. I personally, again, I think I'm like you, I like a little bit bigger screen. So I like my 11-inch one. But I think there's a lot of people that kind of feel like it's the nice, like next level up from their iPhone. I don't know if did you watch like a lot of movies or consume a lot of content on your phone? Because I don't. I like using my iPad for that.
Yeah,
I feel like the phone screen's just a little bit too small.
I don't, yeah, right. I mean, the only time I might do that is if I was stuck someplace, like in a waiting room or something like that. But even then, first of all, it's a bit small. And second, I don't want to be sitting there with headphones in if I'm someplace where I'm waiting for something, but I don't want to blare it out to everybody else either. Yeah. I'll tell you the one thing about the iPad mini, and I come back to it every now and then, and I promptly forget because I forget about the iPad mini. I would like to see numbers for businesses. I'd like to see numbers for the enterprise with the iPad mini because I could see that being a good device for that. Kind of like at the California streaming event when they said it's perfect for strapping to your leg and flying an airplane. I don't think you're not going to walk onto a United Airlines flight and see somebody with an iPad mini, but I would like to know the business use cases and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're talking about pilots in that scenario.
Well,
right?
yeah. No, not just anybody. It's like, no, you got this.
So, like, that's what I meant by niche. Like, I have a feeling like you find them probably on construction sites. They're probably used as like, terminals for like, I would imagine it like outfitting a restaurant,
sure,
ordering system or something like that. Like Toast is a company that does like a ordering system, and I think they have an app and stuff like that. So, your waiter or waitress can basically be geared up with an iPad mini and take your order and probably process credit cards. Like there's probably a lot of applications like that where that fits in. And I think that plays into that fact where they don't have to update it that frequently,
right?
But every 4 or 5 years or so, do a refresh of that thing. And I think there's a market for it.
So am I hearing you correctly then? No new watch for you and no new iPhone for you, or you did get one of those?
No, I did get a new iPhone,
okay.
But that's mainly just because I get one every year. And if I'm being 100% honest with you, like this year's iPhone is definitely for, I think, the photographer or cinematographer, right? Like if you're not in that space and you already have like an 11 or a 12, there's not a lot, I don't think, in the iPhone 13 that is necessary or needed. I kind of just do it so I can talk about the new features. Really, the main new feature I wanted to be able to talk about was the cinema mode for video. Not that I'm personally going to use it all that much,
right?
But I wanted to be able to speak firsthand to it for my show. So I just kind of de facto upgrade every year. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I have not noticed day-to-day a usage difference from my iPhone 12. Like, there's nothing in the 13 where I'm going, oh, yeah, I'm glad I have the 13 because of XYZ.
From the 12 to the 13, that doesn't surprise me. I will say, having gone from the 11 to the 13, it's a bit more responsive. It's a bit zippier. And I keep forgetting because I only remember today because I went to the grocery store today, because that's about the only place I go. I can't remember. I think it was on this show or maybe another show where I was talking about the fact that I hadn't really noticed the 5G thing because about the only places I go are the grocery store or out for a run. And if I'm out running, I'm not looking at my phone, right?
Right.
The 5G thing is no joke. And it's not like now everything is faster. Now my life has completely changed. And yet I seem to have a signal inside stores where I used to not have signal.
Yeah.
Like on the rare occasion that I go someplace besides the grocery store, which is basically Target. It used to be if I get like to the middle of Target, I have no signal. And that seems to have changed. So, I mean, that's really cool. I would love for this to be the normal times where I was just going everywhere and doing stuff more. And then I could speak to that more. But that has actually been a change for me.
That's a great point. I think you're right there. The 5G is a little bit of a game changer, and I can say that having just traveled like across the massive desert between California and Arizona, and it did definitely make a difference. Like there were many times where I had 5G and my daughter is on an iPhone 11, I think it is, and where she would have signal and stuff like that. So Yeah, that's a massive difference. And I am noticing more because I have the T-Mobile where I'm getting the faster millimeter wave connection, and that thing is screaming fast. So yeah, that does make a little bit of a difference. But I would have had that with the 12 as well as the 13. So I think you're right. Like if you're upgrading from a 10 or 11, something like that, I think it's a worthwhile upgrade. My main point though is, if you're tight on dollars, I think sometimes people in our community feel like they have to have the newest, latest, greatest thing, and I think that's a little bit of definitely a marketing push from the Apple side, and definitely you hear a push from the tech community side and stuff like that. And I like to try to be honest with people about really, you're probably fine if you have an iPhone 11. Like, you could wait for a 14 and it'll be a bigger upgrade than probably what you're going to the 13. So it has to do with your own personality, sort of, where you're feeling about some of the technologies that are in there. It's not that it doesn't have really nice updates in it, but are they all must-have things? If push comes to shove, and I'm being honest about it, no, I don't think anything in there is a must-have for someone updating from an 11. But there's a lot of nice things in there, right? And I think that's kind of what we're talking about.
What's the difference between being in a bad mood and being in a bad way? If you're not sure, think you might want to talk to somebody? You can with BetterHelp, sponsor of today's show. Here's what I like about BetterHelp. Counseling happens on your terms. You answer a few questions and BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. And if they're not the right therapist, changing is amazingly easy. A while ago, BetterHelp matched me with somebody who just wasn't a fit. I had no problem changing. The next therapist they paired me with was great. We worked together for a while, sometimes on the phone, sometimes by text. That's one of the great things. Phone, tablet, text, computer. However you're comfortable, that's how BetterHelp works. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor at betterhelp.com/AFEW. That's HELP. betterhelp.com/AFEW, as in a few minutes. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Again, that is BetterHelp, HELP, betterhelp.com/AFEW. And thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's show. Continuing our conversation with Adam Christianson of the MacCast. All right, so let's, as I said at the beginning of the show, you're a MacCaster, so let's talk about the Mac. Apple, earlier this week. Where does the time go? Was it last week? I can't even tell you anymore. I think it was earlier
Monday.
this week.
It was this week.
It was Monday. That's what's confusing me. I was like, it can't have been Tuesday, because I've been talking about it longer than that, but they don't do things on Monday. And yet this time they did. Yeah, I know. Kind of weird. You got the M1 Pro. You got the M1 Max. You've got the 14-inch MacBook Pro. You got the 16-inch MacBook Pro. I'm assuming that this all went fine. I mean, the fact that I live in a newsfeed that is dedicated to Apple, I can point at a bunch of things and go, well, why the heck is that happening and why the heck is that? Like, why do we have HDMI 2.0 instead of 2.1? Why doesn't it read the fastest SD card out there, or whatever that story is that I just hit it for today's macOS Ken as people hear this, but I haven't actually gotten into it yet as you and I record. Mm-hmm. I think everything went fine as far as the launch, as far as the redesign. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think it's everything we wanted and more, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if I hadn't had the need to buy my 16-inch MacBook Pro when I did, this was the machine I was waiting for, and I would have thrown down, Monday to get my machine. I guess they're getting hard to get now at this point, but yeah, I mean, it's they took what we thought was going to be the next generation of Apple Silicon and like just even pushed it further, I think. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that, everybody thought it was going to be called an M1X, and that's not at all what they're called. Obviously, Pro and Max. Mm-hmm. It seems like nobody predicted the Pro Max thing. So like, I love the fact that Apple is surprising us with stuff. And I love the fact that like these systems just kind of show Apple's prowess at designing these chips. And I'm just super excited about them. Like, I can't wait till they get out in the real world and people start using them and we start hearing about the benchmarks and all that stuff. And yeah, you're right. I mean, there were a couple of like, if you have to go in and nitpick a bunch of stuff, there are things that you can definitely nitpick about in terms of some of the specs and those sorts of things. But man, those take a backseat to the processors and what Apple's doing with that side of things.
I am excited about the processors, although I'm also, I don't know. I mean, you know me, man. I come at all this stuff from very much a consumer side. I assume that my next computer is going to be faster. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, so when I finally do trade up to an M1 something, I'm assuming it won't be an M1 at this point. It'll probably be a Pro or a Max, but I don't know for certain because I'm a year or two away from needing a new computer, maybe even 3. I don't know. The things that I'm looking at and that I'm excited about, and Allison Sheridan and I kind of got into it a little bit earlier this week. I'm excited about the wealth of ports. I'm excited about, the SD card slot. I'm excited about the HDMI. And I did use the SD card slot on my MacBook Air, but that's because my MacBook Air had almost no storage. It was minimized on the SSD. Excuse me. I don't even know if I would use them anymore, but I like seeing Apple say, all right, that didn't work as well for everybody as we wanted it to. We're going to leave most of these ports here, but then we're going to add these other things as well. I like seeing MagSafe come back with the light indicator and all that as well. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Because, I mean, if you
like the death of the touch bar.
You like the death of the touch bar?
It's the most worthless thing for me. Like, I never use it.
Really?
Most of the time, I accidentally hit something on it, and my Mac does something weird.
Yeah.
Like,
that part bothers me.
I don't have function keys. Like, it's annoying.
The part where I hit it and something else happens does bother me. I do use it, though, quite a bit for formatting my script daily. So, italics or whatever. It's kind of ridiculous. And I only do that when I look up there and I happen to see it. But when I do look up and happen to see it, I like it.
Exactly. That's the point. What you just said right there is like, I use it when I happen to notice it, but it's not something that like changed how I used a computer. It's like I have to force myself to use it. And maybe if I forced myself to use it more, it would become a more useful thing. But like, I think it was a good experiment. I mean, it's interesting, right? But at the end of the day, it was an experiment. And what I'm happy about is Apple recognized and listened to the community and said, look, all right, we get what you're trying to do. We understand it. It was a novel effort. It just doesn't work. Like, functionally on a day-to-day, day-in, day-out basis, we'd prefer to have the function keys. And now they go to a full-height function key. Like, I think it was the right move. And I think that's what you're alluding to, is like putting those ports back, like getting rid of MagSafe. Like, why? That was a great technology. People loved it. It does what it's supposed to do. It works really well. Why would you dump that? Those other ports, HDMI, these are pro computers. We need to plug into projectors. We need to plug into monitors. We need to plug into things. This is really convenient. Why would you take that away? So like them redoing all that stuff, I think was the right move. And it's good that they listen to the community. And all of these things that are all exciting about this new machine. Like, you're absolutely right. Like, I have never heard, the kind of buzz that we're hearing from the pro community in a long time, like since Apple basically got rid of all that stuff. So now, I mean, these things are going to sell like crazy. And again, like the fact that on top of that, the performance is just through the roof.
Yeah.
Like, I know you're saying you're more consumer oriented, but like these things are just leaps and bounds above anything on the market. And it's just crazy. Like it's super exciting to be a Mac fan right now. And I can't even wait to see what happens with the Mac Pro, which is going to be like, I can't even imagine. Like I'm like this thinking in my head. It's something like basically the Macs. I think it was Snazzy Labs did a video, and the speculation is, or I think the understanding is basically the thing that is going to be in the Mac Pro is basically 4 M1 Maxes stuck together. Like that's the processor.
What does that accomplish for you, though? I mean, what
does that accomplish for you?
I'm asking you for specifics. I mean, I don't, like you say 4 of those together. I'm like, okay, 4 of those together. I mean, give me the use case scenario at that point. Like, am I rendering for an Avengers movie at that point? Am I doing like scientific? I mean, what am I doing with that machine?
Doing, like everything and everything else. Yeah, like, I mean, I don't even know. Like that's the crazy world we're living in with this Apple Silicon right now. Like, I don't even think people have thought of what they're going to do with these things. Like the fact that the new M1 Max, right, has, what is it, like, is it 2 or 4? I can't remember, because I don't even live in this world, right? But the fact that it has ProRes hardware encoding, and I think it has 2 in the Max, right? So it has hardware encoding. So it means that you're going to be able to, process your video that much faster. And that means creating more stuff. It means like being able to not have limitations on your creative workflows that you do today. Not having to wait for stuff means that you get to get more stuff done. Mm-hmm. And, again, one of the reasons I am a Mac fan is because the technology doesn't get in the way of my creativity. And like, to me, the most exciting part of that is that it's going to be more of that, right? You're just going to be able to process more streams. You're going to be able to do more 8K, 4K, like just be more creative and not have the technical bottlenecks that get in your way where you're waiting for stuff to render. You're waiting for stuff to process. You're waiting for stuff to, you know what I mean? So like when people can just get in and use their tools and not have to wait for those things to happen, they can be more creative. They can focus more on their ideas. They can focus more on their visions and create more cool stuff. So, and to me, that's exactly why we use Macs and not PCs and other technologies and stuff like that, because the technology gets out of the way and the creativity comes forward. And so I just see more of that. So I guess that's what I'm super excited about.